Yo, what is up guys? It's Pedro here, and in today's video I will be going over what I think are the top 5 off-season priorities for the Washington Commanders. So some things they can do in free agency, the draft, and coaching wise. So if you guys are new, make sure to subscribe for Washington and NFL content. It takes 1 second, just hit that subscribe button. I know someone who's watching isn't. Also hit that like button and that notification bell. And guys, I did record this right before the Scott Turner news came out, so there's going to be a section where I talk about the Washington Commanders need to move on from Scott Turner, so ignore that part. But in that little section, I do talk about some names that I would like the Washington Commanders to hire. Enjoy the rest of the video. So it is now the off season, at least for the Washington Commanders who are not in the playoffs, and I like to do this video every year going over the priorities I think the Washington Commanders should have going into the offseason. So free agency, the draft, and some coaching moves. So let's start off with a guy I think one of their top priorities should be bringing back defensive tackle Daron Payne, who who just had an outstanding year for the Washington Commanders. 11.5 sacks is outstanding. That is his best year by far. And I saw people in the comments before say, I don't really want to bring back Daron Payne because was his only good year. And I get that, but he still had a good years. Like, getting sacks from the defensive tackle position is much harder than at the edge position. And he still, had close to 5 sacks in 2021, and then 3, 2, and 5. So obviously not great sack numbers, but in 2020, when he had 3 sacks, I believe he had 2 sacks in the playoff game against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. The talent's always been there, and he's still super young. What is he? He's 25 years old. So it's not like he's 28, 29, and it's like there's not much room to grow. Like, one reason for the improvement, I think it's probably a contract year, but also we switched a defensive line coach. We promoted Coach Z, and also hired Ryan Kerrigan as a coach. That could have played into it. Of course, just getting better, being older could have helped a little bit as well. I think maybe a combination of all 3 of those things helped him have a career year. Nonetheless, he's an amazing defensive tackle, and him and Allen, I believe, are the best defensive tackle duo in the NFL, and I think they should keep him. Those two have shown much more than Montez Sweat and Chase Young have. So bring back Daron Payne and worry about those other 2 next, because Daron Payne is a free agent. So, it's not even like, Montez Sweat's going to be here for at least another year, and Chase Young too. So that's why I would just try to re-sign Daron Payne. I don't think he's going to be gone, though. I think at worst for the Commanders, he'll be on the franchise tag, and they'll, wait and maybe try to get a deal done during the offseason, or maybe trade him. Maybe. But I would prefer to just keep him, and I think they would as well. So I think a deal will get done with Daron Payne. He is very, very good. And I saw some people saying 12, 13, 14 million. Guys, sorry, it's starting at $20 million. There's zero chance he's getting less than what Jonathan Allen got, which is 18. But I think it's going to be 22, maybe around 23, 24 mil. I mean, Jonathan Allen got $18.5 million, I believe, a year 2 years ago. 2 years ago, he got $18.5 million, and he didn't have his career year yet. He had 1 year with over 6 or 7 sacks, I think. And besides that, he was having good years, like Daron Payne, was good in the run game and was getting pressures, but he wasn't putting up those huge sack numbers, and he still got 18 mil. So you add 2 years to that, I mean, that adds at least 4 mil in my opinion, maybe even more. And Daron Payne just is coming off a almost 12 sack season. So and he showed up consistently throughout the year, hasn't really dealt with injuries. I mean, you look at it, he's missed 1 game in his career. 1 game. And that's going through the whole, the pandemic and everything. Only missing 1 game is very, very impressive. I think you've got to bring him back. And, moving on from Carson Wentz, which I'm assuming they're going to do, will save a lot of money and will allow them to do this contract. The earlier you do it, the cheaper it's going to be in the long run. If they franchise tag him and don't get a deal done until next year, it'll be more expensive, just like it's more expensive now than it would have been to do last offseason. They could have done it last offseason. And if they, I think Phidarian Mathis will be a good draft pick, or it will end up being a good player. But let's say they, extended Ron Payne before that happened, and let's say kept him settled, they would have been in a great position and been able to use that second round pick on a linebacker or someone else. And John Ridgeway turned out to be a great pickup for them, who I think will be a very solid rotational player. He did get hurt. Hopefully he's all good. But yeah, they should have done this earlier. Would have saved them probably $3-4 million a year. It is what it is, though. Definitely got to re-sign Daron Payne. Next guy is Cameron Curl. Cameron Curl is extremely important to this Commanders defense, and he's not a free agent. He will be here next season, but next year he will be a free agent since he was a 7th-round pick and not a first. He was on a 4-year deal, so next year will be year 4, and you got to try to get a deal done now. We know how good he is, and the league probably does as well, but his interception numbers are almost non-existent after his rookie year. I believe he's had 0 interceptions since his rookie year, and I'm not discounting him as a player. He's a great player, but in terms of what the league might view him as without those interceptions as a safety, maybe we can get him for a little bit cheaper now versus contract year. Maybe he gets some more interceptions and his price goes up. I don't really care that much about the interceptions because the type of player he is, if you really think about it, how many times was he really in position to make an interception? Did he even drop a single one? Like Bob McCain dropped a couple, Kendall Fuller dropped a couple, Benjamin St. Juste, Danny Johnson, they were all in position. Cam Curl, not necessarily because he was locking the players up and they weren't really throwing to him. And a lot of times he's in the box anyways. So, he's really good in the run game. So, the interceptions doesn't really matter to me, but it might matter in terms of his perspective around the league. And you might be able to get him cheaper. I mean, you will be able to get him cheaper now versus next year, but even more of a discount if he does have a contract year. That's what I'm saying. The contract year is scary because a lot are not for, really a little bit for the player, actually for both. But in terms of if you don't sign the guy early and he balls out in his contract year, well, the price just went up, and that's what happened with Jonathan Allen. So I really think the Commanders got to re-sign Cameron Curl, early while they can for relatively cheap. I don't know what it's going to be. I don't know. I think it's going to be around that 10 to 15 mil range, probably. I mean, teams know how good he is. But I don't know if they know how good he really is. They know he's good, but they probably don't think he's an elite safety. I think he is at that level, or at least close to it, at least for this team, how important he is for this team, and what our defense pretty much, the games we struggle the most were without Cameron Curl. The Lions game, the Jaguars game, and the 49ers game, all without Cameron Curl. Even the Browns game as well. The secondary struggled big time in the second half. So I'm bringing back Cameron Curl for sure. Next guy, our next priority, I think, should be finding a new offensive coordinator. And I think you could say same thing about, Ron Rivera. But I want to be realistic. I don't think Rivera is going to be gone. Maybe there's a little bit of a chance, maybe 10% chance. But Scott Turner, that's realistic. And I think you got to move on from him and find someone else. But the biggest one of the biggest priorities this offseason, just get rid of Scott Turner because almost anyone is better. If you want to go to Ken Zampese, I'm totally fine with that. Am I a huge fan of it? No, but I'll take that over Scott Turner. Ken Zampese has so much experience in this league and would not, he wouldn't be at the top of my list, but wouldn't hate it as well. I think I heard Mike Shula as well from Rio, who was the offensive coordinator for the Panthers when Ron was there. That's an option. Frank Reich, I don't think he's coming here. I think he might get some head coaching looks. I think he already is. And if he's going to be an offensive coordinator, he's probably going to go somewhere else. But wouldn't mind Frank Reich. And there's some other options as well. Pep Hamilton's an offensive coordinator. I don't think he'll come here, but still wouldn't mind him. There's some options. There's options. And all of them are better than Scott Turner. So get Scott Turner out of here. Don't like to celebrate guys getting fired, but I do think we need a new offensive coordinator. Not only do the players think it, but all the fans think it. And we've heard the players voice their opinions more and more over the last couple weeks. And you see right here, Ron Rivera had a press conference today with Martin Mayhew. Really nothing was said. But one thing he did say that I thought was telling, he said, when someone asked him about Scott Turner's job this year, he said, I think Scott did his job and did the things he tried to do. So we're going to self-evaluate and go through that process. And that was the full answer. And in the in the last couple of years, when Ron's been asked about coaches going to the offseason, usually says, I don't expect any change to be made. He has not said that at all. I really think Scott Turner will be gone. I'm after the, already when we saw the players talk about it and just his performance and even some of Ron's comments during the season kind of led me to believe, okay, he's probably going to be gone. After seeing this, basically not giving him a compliment at all, he really just said, I think Scott did his job. And obviously, I mean, Scott technically did his job. Like, he went in and called plays. Did he do his job well? No. And that's kind of what he's saying. Like, if he thought Scott Turner did his job well, he would have said something else, or said, I think Scott did his job tremendously, or did, good job. He just said he did his job. Not a ringing endorsement at all. And, yeah, find someone else. There's options. Maybe if we officially fire Scott Turner, or it's trending that way, like even more than it is now, I'll probably make a video going over candidates, but I'm excited for that when the time comes. So that's definitely something I think they should do. Another one, and these are just the offensive numbers this year: 12th in yards gained, 12th in rush yards, 21st in pass yards. And normally, okay, the rushing yard or the yards gained is a better stat on offense than points per game. But I think with this offense, where they would so many times get a ton of yards and they would just kick a field goal or turnover on downs or just a turnover in general, that I think points is a more fair measurement for this offense. And they were 24th, and they're kind of regressing, and they had better offensive personnel this year. So I really think that Scott Turner, we need to move on from him. So what is that? That was one of them. Deron Payne was number one. No order here, but first one was Deron Payne. Second was Cameron Curl. Then we go to Scott Turner. That is one. And then the next one is we have to improve our offensive line. Our offensive line really did not play well this year. And yes, part of it is injuries, and Rivera's talked about that. And today, Mayhew says Commanders will look to add more youth and get younger on the offensive line. And Rivera adds the team is looking at why the team had so many injuries at center and how to prevent them that moving forward. There's a lot of different spots where they need to improve at offensive, at the O-line position. I think you gotta at least at minimum bring in one more guard. Chris Paul, I like him, but I don't really think you can go into this offseason being like, okay, Chris Paul will be our starting offensive guard. I think you have to bring in at least a veteran that's like, let's say not necessarily a 29-year-old on his second or third, going into his third contract, but maybe a guy that's coming off his rookie contract, 25 to 28 years old, and is not a top tier guy, but a guy that you're gonna pay around $7 to $10 million, like a really solid guard. Bring one of those guys in. You're gonna have a decent amount of money, so and I will have a cap space video soon. Do that. Draft a guy, whether it's at tackle or guard, and then you can think about Chris Paul as a possible option as well. And that I'll be fine with. I think Charles Leno, I don't know. It is what it is with Charles Leno. He had a good first year here. This year, not as good. Like, he was a below average tackle in my opinion this year. Sam Cosmi, I want to know what happened with him. If they weren't playing him because he was hurt, or they just didn't think he was good. Because he was good in his first year and then played a few games this year. Wasn't as great and got hurt. So, I don't know. Offensive line needs to make some moves. And I would probably draft a guard / center. A guy that maybe can play both in case Roulier doesn't ever truly come back to what he was. Maybe he retires. Like, I don't know. 2 injuries like that in a row is unfortunate. And the last one, I don't have a visual up for this, but you got to figure out what you're doing at the quarterback position. You just have to. Whether it's, okay, we're going to keep Sam Howell and, bring in a backup veteran, maybe like Heineke, or are we going to bring back Heineke and have Heineke and Howell compete? I'm fine with that, because if Howell is truly your guy, he should beat out Taylor Heineke in training camp. Heineke is a very good backup, but if Howell is the guy, he should be at least close to what Heineke is this next offseason or better than him and win that starting job. So I wouldn't mind that, or if they want to go after Lamar. Like, you know, this is obviously a long shot, but they got to try if they can get Lamar or, you know, Aaron Rodgers or, I mean, that's not going to happen. Brady, Rodgers aren't coming here. They're also very old. But someone like Lamar, I would not mind that at all. He's going to have to give up a lot of capital, and you're going to have to pay him a lot, but could be worth it. Derek Carr is another option. I'm not a huge fan of Carr, but if you don't have to trade for him, if he somehow gets released, I'm okay with that. Or you bring back Hal, maybe sign not even Heineke, because Heineke is going to be an expensive veteran. Maybe bring in a low-tier guy for $1 or $2 million that's been in the league for a while, that, you know, has been a backup for a while, but not a great backup, and then you draft a rookie and kind of have that room in there just so you can have at least one veteran to help out Howell and that rookie. I don't know. There's a lot of different options, but they got to figure it out and do that early and just have a plan going into, you know, not necessarily going into the offseason, but going into the process. So going into, let's say, by Super Bowl weekend is when kind of some trades start to happen, and I think the new year happens. They have to start, you know, they have to have a plan on what they're going to do, what's plan A, B, C, D, and whatever. So that's kind of, those are my offseason priorities. Deron Payne, Cameron Curl, kind of the top free agents I think we should bring back. And then, you know, get rid of Scott Turner, find someone new, and offensive line's got to get rehauled or overhauled, and then figure out, have a plan set in place for the quarterback position. So that is it for today's video. I hope you guys did enjoy. If you did, hit that like button, subscribe if you guys are new, and peace, guys.